What's going on, everybody, and welcome on in to the OBR post-game show. The Cleveland Browns Week 1 is in the books, and I don't know how long it's going to take to forget about this one. I'm kind of hoping tomorrow morning I wake up and don't remember a damn thing about what happened at Huntington Bank Field today as the Dallas Cowboys come into Cleveland and absolutely stomp the living you-know-what out of the Cleveland Browns. 33-17 is the final score. It wasn't nearly that close. But thank you to Jerome Ford for that last-minute touchdown for the fantasy team. With you is the OBR crew here tonight on the postgame show. I'm Michael Keefe, Brad Ward, Casey Kinnaman, Pete Smith. Boys, it all starts. It starts and ends with 4. We can talk about all the other stuff that went down in this game, but the most important thing I think we all have to talk about is what we felt about what number 4 did out there on the field. Again, we can get into penalties, we can get into drops, we can get into some other things, but let's talk about with the full off season and supposedly feeling healthy after that shoulder surgery, guys. Let's just dive into the number 4 conversation and what you think happened today in this game against Dallas.
This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion to most, but although, listen, he did not play well, but it was by far all on him. I mean, you say, it's all about 4. Like, okay, this offense did not have we were worried about this, right? This offense did not play a lot together in the preseason. They were not on the field together in training camp a lot, and that was evident. 11 penalties, illegal formations, like 5 times is absurd, right? But like, okay, and everybody's going to come down really hard on Deshaun, and he did not play well. I'm not by any chance saying that he did play well, but it wasn't all on him. He was under duress all day long. Did he make some poor passes? Yes, he did. Did he do what he could do at times? Yes. But I'm not going to write off his season after one game of this because he needs more time in this offense. They need an offensive line that can give him some semblance of time. They need guys that catch the ball. I mean, okay, and I also kind of blame the game plan. We wanted things to get started quick and early with him, but like that was ultra hyper conservative. They didn't even give him a chance to throw the ball down the field in the first half at all. Like I can remember like 2 throws, you got a chance to throw the ball down the field in the first half. So while yes, he was bad at times. And yes, he did, to Bill's point in the chat, a couple of the bombs certainly were, I wish they were in the field of play and not out of bounds by like 10 yards. I don't know if he was throwing the ones away in the corner of the end zone. I do think I'm just going to say, I think if you give him a game or 2, I think we'll see a better version of this. I'm not going to panic here and say game 1, 2024, that's it for Watson. He's done. He's cooked. I'm not going to do that because there were a lot of mitigating factors here. I'm not saying he was good. He wasn't good. But neither was anybody really around him offensively at all. Had no help.
I promise Brad and I didn't talk during the game, but we saw it very similarly. The tone was set up front, and they just got their tails kicked, and it bled into his game pretty quickly. I think 22 total pressures is what Dallas had, and he never looked comfortable. And even when he would start to get time, he wasn't accurate. He was throwing behind people, and on the rare instances where he would actually hit someone in the hands, they would drop it. It was just a snowball effect. But for me, it starts up front and it works its way back. And I honestly, they left him in there, and they're, everybody's want to focus on that rust word. I don't know you're really accomplishing anything in the fourth quarter of that game by leaving him in there. I don't know. A lot of bad happened today, and a lot of blame to go around, and the lion's share of it will fall on 4. That's the nature of the position. He didn't look good, and they didn't put him in too many opportunities to look good, in my opinion. So it was bad all around. I need to see the all 22 because there were several times, and this is after the game was not even competitive, but when the rush would come in, he would just drop his eyes. Like that's nothing good happens at that point. So I need to see who was free at that time.
That was my biggest complaint with him, besides throwing the ball, not being able to throw the ball down the field accurately. Now, let's make a point that the balls that did fly violently out of bounds by like 10 yards that were nowhere near anybody downfield, they were all double covered. It's not like he was throwing to open wide receivers on any of those plays. So, but either way, I saw the same thing as you, Case. Sometimes he just holds the ball too long. Like you're just holding the ball too long sometimes. And I know the offensive line was bad today, but there were times that he'd have time and his eyes do go down.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, Casey. I saw the same thing. That is something that has to be fixed. And I knew this opinion wasn't going to be popular to not blame him for all of this in the chat as I'm seeing, but there's problems. There was problems all over the offense. I'd be interested to see what Pete says.
So DeJuan Jones had the worst game of his career. The left tackle situation was abysmal. Wide receivers dropped balls. Deshaun Watson did not make anyone better in this football game at any point ever. And that's the standard. He's got to make people better. He didn't make anyone better. And I'm not suggesting that he's going to be that it's over or that you're going to bench him or any of these other things. But right this second, Deshaun Watson is the biggest energy vampire in the NFL. He sucks the life out of this team. He sucks the life out of this fan base. And you can blame all these other things, and they're valid. They're 100%. They've all got to get better if this team's going to be successful. But he was either short hopping throws or overthrowing throws or that interception that was tipped by Micah Parsons. That was not a franchise level quarterback throw that needed to be made. It was a competent throw. You knew it was designed. They blocked the line, blocked down. They knew they freed that up specifically to get that look and throw the out route. He couldn't do it. And those are the things where I sit there and if you're trying to sell me on Deshaun Watson being the leader of this offense and being a franchise level quarterback, give me something. Give me anything. Yeah. And to the point of should they have left him in there? Yeah. If I'm going to hear all this crap about preseason, which I don't buy preseason. I don't buy rust or any of this other crap because most of the guys who struggled in this game played in the preseason. They sucked. And those are things that have to be addressed. But ultimately, Deshaun Watson has to provide some reason for anyone to care about him being the future of the present of this team. Because if it continues this direction, 7 days, they got to get this turned around quick. If this continues to go in this direction, it's not the fans they got to worry about. It's his teammates. His teammates, as much as I guarantee they're all going to come out and go, we all played poorly. And they're right to, in large part. I think the defense was okay. There are some issues there as well. And the special teams gaffe was a disgrace. But if this continues, you saw it on the balls they're sailing out of bounds. Like their body language of the receivers are like, give me a shot. And that didn't happen. And he made what it should be a talented receiving core look more ordinary than it looked ordinary. And they own their own blame on that. David Njoku dropped the ball. Amari Cooper dropped the ball. Elijah Moore dropped the ball. Those are all things happen. But at some point, Deshaun Watson has to make somebody better. And he's not. And this is, for people who tune to the preseason, this is the thing I continuously cited about DTR. This is not suggesting that DTR is the answer to this situation. Only that when you watch him play football, he makes guys better. And Deshaun Watson has to start making somebody better. And the thing is, I liked his approach early in the game. I know people are like down on it. Well, they're super conservative. I wanted him to desperately just get the ball out of his hands and let things work for him. And they got the field goal. And then they started getting penalties. So it made getting the ball out of his hands sort of punishing. But the second the scoreboard went against him, he started holding onto the ball too long. He started extending plays that were not there. And he took a ton of body blows in this game. He's never going to survive. And the problem is Deshaun Watson right now is playing like a guy who wants to die on the field. And the bigger problem for him is that the fans right now are ready to root for this outcome if he does not get it squared away. So, like, I'm absolutely telling you, this can, it's a week-to-week league. The Browns can come out next week and be great. But you have to provide some reason to believe that Deshaun Watson is going to be better. And you got very little of that. There were a couple good throws peppered in there, but nothing was consistent. Nothing was predictable. I don't blame the offensive design. I actually think there were things that were there and they didn't execute. And a lot of that's, again, penalties, offensive line issues, receivers and stuff like that. But it starts with him. And I think Michael was dead on to start. All the issues are there. All the issues have to get corrected. But it's all about number 4.
Guys, this is what I got. Been have people screaming at me on Twitter for the last half hour, which is fine because that's why Twitter exists, is so we can all scream at each other. Listen, here's my thing. We can talk about DeJuan Jones and James Hudson, although, yeah, whatever. We can talk about the penalties. We can talk about dropping passes. We can talk about it all. What I want to see out of the $230 million man in now his 3rd season with the team, even though he's missed most of the time over that period of time, what I want to see out of the franchise quarterback is a guy that I feel comfortable going, hey, the rest of the team is playing like crap, but this dude is trying to elevate. This dude is making the right read at the right time and doing what he needs to do to try to bring the rest of it. Sometimes a $230 million quarterback is going to have to put the team on a sled behind him and just drag them to a decent outcome. And again, I'm not even talking about a win against a team like Dallas, because Dallas is too good to play that sloppy against and win. But man, just not even bringing anything. He's on the sled. There's nobody pulling the sled. He's on the sled and nobody's pulling it. That's what I want to see. That's what has me fired up after this game. It's why we started with Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying he's going to be bad next week. I'm not saying he's going to be bad the week after. I'm not saying he sucks forever. But, man, if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, be a franchise quarterback. Make some plays.
Just be confident. Just be confident.
Make some plays.
Yes. Again, agreed. Needs to be much better. Agreed. In the second half, made some terrible throws. But what was there in the first half show me the plays in the first half he was supposed to make.
The out route that he threw to Micah Parsons' hands straight up in the air that was wide open. Like he short hopped any number of throws that were there to be made. He just and those are going to be charged as
drops. Those were for 3 yards. Those were 3 yards out. Those were 3-yard outs, Pete. Those were. Did you see the pass chart in the first half? He didn't throw one pass more than 5 yards down the field.
Which I'm fine with, given that David Njoku, like the one he dropped, his drop, there was room to run. Like that stuff I'm fine with. And ultimately, there were a couple of dump offs where Jerome Ford catches a ball, would have been a first down, but they had the 5-yard penalty. So I don't disagree with that. I just look at the setup of the game. You are asking the quarterback to throw the ball down the field when you know you are going to be at a disadvantage in terms of protection. To me, it's get the ball out quickly and let your playmakers do something. And to do that, you need to have better ball placement so they can catch it in a position where they can go and do some of those things. And like I said, I think they deserve their share of blame. But I just come back to the simple fact that he never makes anyone better in this game. He never makes anyone better. You're never sitting there going, man, Deshaun Watson really put him in his position to succeed. Ultimately, the consistent threat through line after they got behind on the scoreboard was he made bad situations worse. And I'm impressed by his strength of being able to wriggle out some of those tackles. I just don't care, because ultimately you're wriggling out of a tackle to go from 3rd and 17 to 4th and 11. Like, you understand where you are in terms of staying out of bad situations, making bad situations worse. The penalties obviously make this a huge problem, but I just need to see him make guys better, put guys in position to succeed. And I didn't see that. And again, I think in a week, this could be completely different. But for right now, if you're sitting there going, show me reasons why Deshaun Watson is the guy.
Yeah.
That's why he's sort of sucking the life out of me watching him.
Yeah. I'm not disputing that he showed anybody that he's anything. He definitely didn't. I'm just saying, I guess, and I get what you're saying about the conservative, but like, taking one attempt more than 5 yards in the first half would have been good, except for the Njoku drop, which would have been a nice gain. But like, we're talking about, that's how finite we're getting, is that we're talking about one drop for one nice gain in the entire first half that we're focused. Like, Okay, and then the second half, all they did was pass, and they just pinned their ears back. He had no time. So I'm not making excuses for him. He did not play well. He was poor under pressure. He didn't make good decisions. But was he set up to succeed in this game? I don't really see it. I don't see. I didn't like the game plan. I thought.
I think part of that.
I'm not saying the offense won't work. There will be guys open. I do believe in this offense. I thought I saw a lot of stuff I liked in the preseason. This defense was very good. It was schemed up well by Zimmer. They were all over stuff. He did not play well. He did not play well. He did not show he's a franchise quarterback. I feel the same way about him I did coming into the season. But was he set up for success in any way in this game? No. He was running for his life the entire game.
That question's going to get answered more. That question's going to get answered more as we're able to watch and break down the actual plays that happened. Because there are definitely plays that we're going to go back to in this game that he did have guys running open that he did not see him, did not throw the ball to him.
Mike, he didn't throw it past 5 yards in the entire first half.
You're acting like that's not a him problem, though, Brad.
It isn't. There is other. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? Look at the pass chart.
Throw the ball.
I suspect when you get to the tape, you're going to find out the Dallas Cowboys sat back, kept everything in front of them, and that's why they had to throw underneath. So ultimately, you are now asking Deshaun Watson, which is why you're talking about, well, some of those deep balls were in double coverage. The Dallas Cowboys were determined to keep everything in front of them, and they did. And that's ultimately what you do, which is why you put yourself behind the sticks. You put yourself in these situations. I mean, the Browns do this all the time to the opponent where they're going to keep stuff in front of them and just play downhill and tackle. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff from Zimmer's defense that reminded me of a Jim Schwartz defense, just guys catching balls and immediately defenders are coming downhill and tackling them. So I don't disagree with the notion that the Browns are ultimately going to have to find a way to be more aggressive. But I think the Cowboys made it a specific effort to ensure they did not get beat deep. The Browns' running game was not potent enough to force them to bring more defenders in the box. And that's ultimately where you get into that situation. Now, I could be wrong on the tape. We'll see. But I think that's ultimately we're going to see.
Let's let Casey get a word in here.
Well, I'm going to answer your original question, Mike. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's that guy who's going to pull everyone up and make everyone better and make everything good just because he's that talented. I think he needs everything right around him, which is exactly the situation that they went and got him because that's where they were stuck at. They needed everyone right around him. And I don't think he's that guy. I don't know if he's going to be that guy at this stage of Deshaun Watson. Everything has to be right. And you saw what happened when it wasn't. We talked about first down efficiency. What happens when you're playing behind the sticks the entire time? And that's where we were at. They were behind the sticks, and all of a sudden it's obvious passing down after obvious passing down, and he's not the guy who's going to pull you out of that.
And I want to let Quincy talk here, but and I agree. I guess I came into this season kind of thinking that my expectation wasn't for him to be that guy that was going to elevate everybody around him. I guess I kind of felt like, yeah, my expectation has changed. Mike, yours hasn't. My expectation has changed. I just want him to be a top 15 quarterback because I felt like that was good enough for this team, right?
Top 15 quarterback would make guys better.
Some way, 100%. Hey, Quincy, one of our newest OBR members has joined the stream. Quincy Carey, you watch the same nonsense that we just watched out there for the last several hours. We're in a heated debate about what we saw out of Deshaun Watson and what we should expect to see out of Deshaun Watson. So jump on in, man.
How's everybody doing? Everybody have at least a good meal or something positive to go for themselves during that game. Hopefully you had like a good beer. It was nice and cold, crisp, something to go for you. Because, like, look, if we want to talk about offensively what went wrong in that game, you can draw a name from a hat. You can put everybody responsible for the Browns offense. Draw a name from a hat, pick a guy, and say that guy was the reason that this team sucked offensively today. Because it could be kind of true, right? Everything went wrong from them, right? They had like 7 illegal procedure penalties. When does that happen? When does that happen and then you win a game or not look embarrassing in that case? The first half, and I think into the third quarter, every time they get like a positive play on first down and they get to like 2nd and 3, boom, what happens right after that? They get a 10-yard penalty. They get knocked back behind the sticks. Now if you're the Cowboys, it's super simple. And if this happens to a lot of quarterbacks, it's going to be a bad result. And I'm not excusing how Deshaun played. I don't think Deshaun played good even when you consider the circumstance. But when you put your quarterback in a situation where it's 2nd and 12, you're going to be playing drop coverage. They're going to unleash Micah Parsons on you, and you don't really have the great protection plan against him where you can just like feel comfortable with like 5 and a chip or 5 1/4 protection, then you're going to put your quarterback in a situation to look terrible. Deshaun compounded that by playing bad in those situations, right? There were some times where he could have stood in there, stepped up instead of rolled out and made some throws. There were definitely some things where it looked like, I was watching this game and I don't know what you guys felt. I don't think he's looked that uncomfortable since 2022. Like even in 2023, as much as people complained or made it out to be that he played like the worst that you could play there, he didn't look that uncomfortable in 2023. And
Body language wasn't great.
I mean, the body language is all, when you get booed at home, you're going to have shit body language. Like it just is what it is. Like it's not a good time.
Yeah.
If somebody showed up to my job and booed me the whole time I was there, like jeered me, I would probably have garbage body language too. But yeah, the body language is bad. I think he didn't look as confident as he did in 2023. And it's bad because we're talking about him backsliding from what he looked like in 2023. And like, I am somebody that people task is like optimistic on this. And I said he was like above average on that, right? Like, I did not think that he was like amazing in 2023. So this one, I mean, it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths nationally. And I think people's minds going to be made up until he does something spectacular. Until he does something spectacular that he's just cooked. Because how could you watch him if you're somebody from the national perspective and not think that, right? You saw the game Pittsburgh last year. That's the only time you really saw him nationally. And then you see this game. And I mean, you could debate whether he looked better in Pittsburgh or in Dallas in this game. I don't feel like it's a debate worth having. It does not look good for him. It always feels like there's a friction going on with the offense when he's out there that does not feel good. And at this point, you switched out coordinators, you got new wide receivers, you changed philosophies on offense. Like we're talking about this third year, we're bringing in a new offense for Deshaun Watson. Every year it looks like this. Like at some point you have to ask, is it just him creating the friction? And I don't think this is enough. Like I said before the season, I'll give him 8 games before I make a determination because I just need to see him play for like 8 consecutive games before I can write the book on him because it's been so in and out and so many different factors that play into it. But I mean, if the next 7 games look like this, but slightly better, I mean, what's the takeaway supposed to be? Right. So, because honestly, like this is not, if the Browns had to start Jameis Winston in this game, you would be disappointed with what they did offensively.
Yes.
And that just is what they did out there in this game. Could that change week 2? Maybe, right? I think a lot of this was, and I think I saw a point on Twitter, and they made a great point there where it said, hey, this offense, even in training camp, they weren't practicing a lot with the ones in there because Jerry Jeudy was in and out. I mean, it looks like that's going to continue because he was in the blue tent today. Amari Cooper was in and out. David Njoku was in and out. So they didn't really have a ton of reps there with the ones even to begin with. But yeah, some of the stuff, like I feel like, yeah, it can be fixed. And you'll see a better version of it against Jacksonville. But there's other stuff in there where I'm like, man, this is concerning that he still doesn't look like he found comfort at any point in that game, even when they were playing drop on him, even when they stopped rushing him at the end of that game. Like it never felt like he was comfortable doing what he's going to do. It still felt like this weird Frankenstein monster on offense where they're still doing some of the old stuff and then doing some of the new stuff. I can't blame anybody for walking away from this game and not feeling great about the Browns offense.
No.
And you can't just walk away from this and say, hey, it's just one game. I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
Unfortunately, guys, and I think it's just going to keep doing this. Unfortunately, guys, we're just at the point too with Deshaun Watson and with the situation for the Browns, and the contracts and the cap and all that. There isn't. This isn't like a hey, we got to let this build up and see how we can let the progress and trust the process to take a Philadelphia 76ers term. This has to be a good team, and it has to start early this year, and it has to develop through the year as a good team. And so it's all we've talked about it over and over again. And I do want to get off of Deshaun in a minute, but it does start there. And it starts with that dude coming out and being the guy at Brad, like you said, even if you want him to be an average starting quarterback, he's got to be a guy that can make average starting quarterback plays on a regular basis with some regularity. We didn't see it tonight. Every time we see a game like this, it's just one more in the notch of games like this. And there's
Sure.
more of those here in Cleveland than there has been not games like this.
It was just, I agree. Like I said, and Quincy said it well. He compounded it with bad play, but he was not set up for success well either. I don't think. Either way, he didn't play well. But
can we talk about Stefanski in this game? Because I don't know, Pete, did you feel this was? I felt this was a very un-Stefanski like game that he called here, where he was. I've never seen him throw so many screens on 3rd and long. I've never seen him be so like conservative and kind of punt, even when the game was still in the balance there. And it just felt like, I'm not saying that like Kevin's not calling the plays, but it's like, man, like I've never seen him punt on offense before punting in the way that he did in this game.
Again, I think ultimately you're going to find out that the Cowboys basically, once they got him behind the sticks, basically backed off, said the pass rush is coming. You guys figure it out. And when you throw those screens, then it just becomes a matter of rallying to the football. And some of that is just here again, trying to get the ball out of Watson's hands one way or the other, because he wouldn't do it after a certain point. So I agree with you in some respects. Ultimately, I think they've got to get more comfort in that, being able to come up with concepts that they like. I think what you saw a little bit in this game is I don't think the Browns have found their rhythm in terms of like, obviously dictated by the sticks in some respects. I don't think they have a go-to play or a go-to set of plays right now where they're like, it's 3rd and 7, let's dial this up. Now, I don't know how many times they're actually in 3rd and 7, but ultimately I think you're going to have to get to a position where you have those calls you're comfortable with. And given everything that was going, you couldn't count on your protection. You couldn't count on Watson. You couldn't count on seemingly your receivers. So this is what you kept running into.
Two things I was going to say. You said 8 games, Quincy, and to Pete's point, if he continues to take the body blows and the hits that he took today, I don't think we'll make 8 games. Like, he's just once again, I know, and he was running for his life, but like hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, give him credit for standing in there and trying to throw that ball to Cooper at the end. I mean, he got absolutely crushed in the face. I mean, but like, so 8 games of that, I don't know if he lasts that long.
I think the locker room will take him out before injury does in that circumstance. But yeah, no, I mean, like, again, and I'll credit you said look for a positive in this game. I'll say the Browns didn't quit. I know there are a lot of fans that wanted to accuse. They tried. They kept having opportunity. Like the Cowboys kept leaving the door open for the Browns to come back in this game. They just refused to do it. But they tried, and then the body language sort of reflective after that fact. And ultimately, that's why I think it was reasonable to keep Watson in the whole game to try to get those reps that people insist he needs. Great. Well, now he's got them. But if that's the one takeaway is I thought they kept trying to play, kept trying to get better and score points. But like, if it's like this in week 4, if it's like this in week 5, I think you're going to start seeing that effort wane, and ultimately you're going to be in a position where those guys lose confidence in the quarterback.
I think there was one drive where he looked semi-comfortable when they were in shotgun the whole drive. First one in the second half, they go down and score. Now, it feels like they're sort of back in the game, but this sequence, I have no idea with Stefanski. 27-10, they're at the 50-yard line, 4 minutes left in the third, and they run forward for 6 yards on first down. If you guys know what sequence I'm talking about. On 3rd and 4, they run the ball, and then they run some ridiculous play on or whatever it was on 4th down. It didn't work. I just like that. To me, I was infuriated with Stefanski on that. Like, what are you doing running the ball on in that situation after the drive that had just occurred? So I don't know. I was frustrated, and I'm a big Stefanski fan, but I was frustrated with some of the and it's not come together yet. Let's just be honest. It's not together yet. the offense doesn't have an identity yet. To everybody's point, they haven't spent time in training camp together, and it may take time. I hope it looks better next week. I just do.
It has to look better next week. I mean, can it look worse than this? If it looks this bad versus Jacksonville, I mean, it's one thing to look this bad week 1 versus Dallas. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they're not a super familiar opponent. If you look this bad versus a defense you played last year, and they're not Dallas, I mean, like that's going to sound off alarm bells, right, in the building, where it's like, if you can't look that bad. Or as bad as you did this week. So you can't have another game like it. It's kind of like Pittsburgh last year, where like you get one game like this a season, and this is your game. You spent it on the first week of the season. You just can't. There's no game where we can come out of it feeling this bad about the offense and think that this team's going to really do anything in the playoffs. Like, they got to just make this a aberration. If this feels like the norm, I mean, then that tells you where this team's going to head, because you stretch your defense like this, they're going to give up points. And you're going to, like, what, of the 33 points that Dallas had in this game, I think maybe 14 of them came on a drive that they started on their own, like 20, 25 kick position.
Yeah. Every
Every other point came from a turnover or like a less than 20-yard drive in this game, or a punt return touchdown. So the defense is still there, and it'll take you a lot further against Jacksonville than it will against the Cowboys. So you'll look better. But the question is, how much better do they have to look in order for you to be comfortable? Because if they put up 22 points and it's a bit of a struggle against Jacksonville and win, they're not going to walk out there feeling great, right? Like, how do they got to put up 40? They got to put 30? Like, what point total? What would you have to see next week for you to be reasonably eased after what you saw this week? That I think that's a good question to ask people.
Casey, why don't you answer that question?
Well, I don't even know if it's a point total. My expectations are so low. I start to worry about the attrition that happened today. You lose David Njoku. What if he's out for 2-3 weeks? You know, what's your plan at tight end? If Judy isn't out there, we're already coming into the season at the same place we left it last year with the offensive tackles. You know, so if you're starting with that, but then if you lose Njoku, then if you lose Judy, you start losing these parts. I don't know how much better you can look. So my expectation is to scrape a win out of Jacksonville on the road, a place your defense didn't even travel well last year. How are they going to do that this year? Like, my expectations are so low going into next week. I still expect to win, but that's the bottom of the barrel for me.
Well, and I think
Judy,
I think it's got to be
return.
Yeah, Judy came back in the game. Yep. It's got to be cleanliness of the game, though, too, guys, when we're talking about what that bare level expectation is. And this goes a little bit against what we were talking about with Deshaun Watson and what falls on his shoulders. But, man, you can't come out and have 10 penalties. You can't. And again, the stupid penalties. There's penalties you're going to get as Browns fans. You're getting at least one or two offsides calls every game because of the way that team gets after the quarterback and the way Myles Garrett tries to time his snap count. You're getting one or two offside penalties every single game because of the nature of the aggressiveness. That's fine. But, like, you can't have procedural, we don't know how to line up in this formation penalties. And you can't have multiple of those, let alone one. So I feel like, Quincy, to your question, I don't care if they win 7-3 next week. If they win 7-3, but they play a cleaner game of football and it's just a defensive slugfest, and they're not out there shooting themselves in the foot the whole game, I'm fine. Good. A win is a win. But again, if it's just constantly doing everything you can to eat away at yourself, to eat away your own legs as you're trying to run, this has to be the only game it happens. It has to be the only game.
It's not a point total for me that you have to see next week to make you feel better. It's to Quincy's point about looking comfortable, right? If he just looks more comfortable in the offense next week and they can get a win, I would feel better. Like you're making some kind of progress with this offense. He can't look as disjointed today in the offense, or as uncomfortable as you pointed out, which I thought was very accurate. Well, I did want to point out that the Browns did lose. Sorry, Pete. Week 1, to the Ravens. What was that in 2021? Didn't they get pumped off the? They came off the bus.
2020, the pandemic year, they lost to the Ravens week 1.
Like 40 something. It was bad. It was bad. Yeah, it was really bad. And they came back in 1 week too. So Stefanski has it in him. He's done this before. So hold out hope.
Last year, the Browns lost after they lost Nick Chubb. They came back the next week and won 27-3 against the Titans. Now, Jacksonville is not the Titans. They're a far better opponent. But Stefanski has historically been very good at getting the team to turn around quickly. They don't suffer losing streaks. They've been good about turning things around. They have we're talking about the veteran locker room, the culture that they've allegedly built up. This is where that has to bear out, that you've got to be able to turn around and get it squared away to be able to make those adjustments. And again, the old adage, unless you're Notre Dame, is the biggest improvement you make is from week 1 to week 2. So they've got to make that happen. Again, it's week-to-week league. It changes real fast. There are any number of people who are going to write off the Bengals for the season because they lost to the Patriots at home. And they could come out next week against the Chiefs, I think is who they play, and rattle off a win. So, you can't – obviously for the sake of the playoff chances in the AFC, the Browns have to turn it around quickly. They have the capability to do it, and it's just a question of is it going to happen? Like you talk about David Njoku and some of these others, I didn't see – obviously the quarterback had a big – factor in this, but I didn't see anything resembling Pro Bowl Njoku. I didn't see anything resembling Pro Bowl Amari Cooper. I would like to think that DeJuan Jones cannot play that badly next week. We shall see. Hopefully you get answers at some of those other positions. I think they have the capacity to bounce back, but ultimately they've got to make that happen.
All right, boys, let's go around real quick. Again, it's real easy to feel just getting kicked in the gut, basically, by how we all felt just several hours ago on the pregame show, going into this game, really feeling like the Browns could come out and make a statement, to now where, again, they got kicked in the teeth, and now we're all feeling the effects of it. But let's take just a minute, guys, and go around and talk about some of the things you saw in this game, or some of the players you saw in this game that you did like. And again, I know a lot of guys made real stupid mistakes and played really poorly, but there were some guys out there playing some pretty decent football as well. So let's go around. Just let's talk about some of the things we liked, whether it was defensively or even some players that made some plays offensively. Who stood out to you guys in a positive way?
I thought the secondary was good in this one. Yeah. The secondary, I thought Denzel played a pretty strong one in this one. I mean, the one big play he gave up was that incredible catch and throw by CeeDee Lamb, where it's like, what you gonna do about that? Like, it's really good coverage there. Thought he played well. Emerson got picked on for like one drive, and I think he kind of locked in after that and settled in after that. And then I'm trying to find somebody offensively. I think maybe Jerome Fort's maybe the only guy you can go with and be like, I think it wasn't that bad, right? Like,
I think he was fine.
Like, he was fine in that one. Like, he was 3.7 a carry, and I think he got. Oh, go ahead, Pete. My bad.
I know there's the one play where people are getting on him, like where he didn't keep going outside. He read the guy's block. The guy's block told him to go where he did, and then the linebacker filled. Like, he's doing what he's coached to do. And granted, that's one of the situations I wish he would just kept going and forced it. But like, I like what the Browns are trying to do run concept wise. Like, there are things in there where I'm sitting there going, yes, this makes sense. We're not asking DeJuan Jones to go block out in space on the outside zone. Like, those things that I am genuinely like excited about what that can be, but I got to see it better up front. I was surprised we didn't see Deontay Foreman at all.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing
we got one play where he was in, and then there was a play action, right?
Yeah. Defensively, Greg Newsome was fine. Like, there was no, like, I wish I knew more about the nature of his injury, because I'm blown away about his recovery and how he was able to come back. To your point, Greg Newsome was never the guy who was picked on. Denzel Ward obviously got beat for one. Martin Emerson. CeeDee Lamb's a phenomenal player. He's going to get his a little bit. The corners were good. Grant Delpit was very good. There's a lot of things where you sit there and go, yeah, that stuff is really promising. The nuts and bolts are there. What I get worried about right now, Dalvin Tomlinson was phenomenal. I don't know how many snaps he actually played, but like, when he's not in there, and I don't know if Shelby Harris really was in there at all. But like, I know this, Quentin Jefferson can't play the run at all. And this was the thing I highlighted all season that I was worried about. They need another big body in there to be able to handle that. If that's just getting Shelby Harris more involved, if that's promoting Briggs on a more regular basis, if that's finding somebody else. But like when you had the Hurst Jefferson lineup in there, that was sort of like begging to be run on. Those are the things that worry me. And then the jet sweep stuff is horrendous that we're still here dealing with it. But there are a lot of things where you sit there and go, defensively, they'll be fine. They've got some things to correct, but like Dak beat them with his brain a couple times, which is something that has happened to this team. But overall, I was okay with that. The defense kept them in it. The red zone efficiency continues to be concerning, but like defensively, they were good. I think there's things offensively they can get figured out, but it all starts with the tackles and the quarterback.
Yeah, and even like with the motion stuff where Browns get moved left to right, it seems to be like only good for a team to get off on the Browns for like one drive or two drives a game. It doesn't seem like it's like something that you could just keep pounding at them and take away kind of the teeth of what they do defensively. So even then, I think the defense is still what they were last year. Like I think they showed that in this game. I think if you get a better performance from the offense here, or you play against a team that's going to capitalize against your mistakes offensively less than the Cowboys. Because like, let's not forget Brandon Aubrey was just kicking bombs all day. Like what he made, 350 plus, 55 plus yard field goals, 160 yarder in that stadium. Whew. So that kind of didn't help, right? Because they were always able to get 3 if you didn't convert on 4th down. And it kind of just kept bleeding into it, where this is like a worse team, you probably can get away with some of this stuff and some of the jank on offense. Yeah, it's just one game, you know. Like I keep trying to bring myself back to that. Like this is probably as bad as the opener could have gone out. Like nobody got, let me knock on wood, nobody got knocked out for the year, right? That's the only way this could have been worse. If this happened and like somebody got knocked out for the year, you still got guys coming back, right? This offense is going to look better when they have whatever they're going to do with Jack Conklin, whatever they're going to do with Jed Wills. It's going to be an upgrade versus whatever we saw today from both, unfortunately, both DeJuan and James Hudson. I don't know, Pete. Like I wasn't watching James that hard. Did James really struggle that as much as people anticipated? Because I didn't notice him coming up a ton outside of the one ineligible receiver downfield penalty he got.
Better than expected, I thought.
I would say overachieved, but there's still leaks. I mean, Deshaun naturally is going to go right, so it sort of helps him out a little bit. And I suspect they rolled some protection over there. Micah Parsons is phenomenal. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I mean, the one Lawrence big pressure actually went through Batonio on one of those where him and Teller both got cooked, which was a big concern for me. But yeah, I mean, I think I think they could live with what they got out of James Hudson. What they could not live with was also getting that badly at DeJuan Jones, who had to have about 3 or 4 penalties in addition to just getting beat. And even then, like it felt, statistically, Parsons wasn't as dominant stat line wise, but he felt like he was everywhere.
Yeah. The positive, I was going to say the entire defense, except, Thorn. It's weird. So Thornhill,
I thought he had that one bad play, but I thought he was fine.
One bad play. After that, I thought he played well. He made some big tackles.
He was hitting,
physical. Yeah, he hit pretty well. So I wasn't, stupid early season game 1, whatever that was. I don't know what he was looking at on that play.
He was looking at Myles Garrett completely washed. He was like, I get the play off. It might be a tip ball. I might get an interception here, right? Like, and completely got caught off that flat footed. So that was wild. But there was one drive that I thought when they took a 7-3 lead, they came back and it was all screens, 2 jet sweeps, like 3 bootlegs where they were using all the pressure the Browns had against them for one drive. And then I thought the Browns adjusted after that, and it was like nothing after that. They really couldn't do much offensively for the rest of the game. So I thought the Browns defense adjusted and played well, especially in the second half.
So, I think they are who we thought they were. The defense is. So on offense, I'll say I was mildly intrigued by Jerry Jeudy.
Shout out Jalen Darden. Phenomenal.
Yes.
Oh yeah, good on those punt returns. Yeah.
Darn.
Man,
Corey Bojorquez is like the MVP of this team in many respects. He's doing work trying to keep them field position wise.
Outside, I don't know if you guys noticed, but on the punt return, I don't know if you noticed it, but the minute the ball hit Bojorquez's foot, he realized he didn't hit that punt well. It left his foot and he just stood there and looked down at the ground for a minute, and that ball was just a line drive directly at the return guy for Dallas. And it set up the punt return touchdown. If you didn't see it, go back and watch that, because he stood there for a second I didn't hit that right. And sure enough, now you got a touchdown. But otherwise, he was good. Listen, guys, in the end, the worst part about what this does for the season is it just doesn't answer any questions. That's the worst part of what has happened here today, is that a lot of people came in with questions. A lot of people wanted to see some of those questions get answered. And whether you're talking about the offensive line play, and especially the depth of tackles that was forced into it today, whether you're talking about the wide receivers, the playmakers, or the quarterback, none of the questions got answered. The questions are still out there. They are unanswered, or some people are going to sit here and tell you that they got answered, but just not in the way that you wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me is the worst part of starting week one like this. But as you guys have all pointed out, it's week one. And hopefully we are talking about, maybe you can get a game like this against the Browns once a season. If that's the case, Quincy, as you were saying, then we're all right. Then we move forward. Nobody else gets a game like this against the Browns, and they plug forward. But just a really, really, really tough way to start the season for the Orange and Brown on the shores of Lake Erie. Just very tough.
We'll feel either extremely ominous about this game at the end of the year, or kind of find it funny by the end of the year, because if the Browns are in contention, even a loss against Dallas, this isn't really going to affect you in the tiebreakers if that ends up mattering for you, right? Because it's an NFC team. I think the tiebreakers go division, conference, head-to-head division, conference. So it doesn't really factor in that way, other than your overall win-loss record, and you knew you weren't going to go undefeated this year. So if this just ends up being a game you lost, and you lost like this early in the season, it could be a marker of progress. Hey, look how much the Browns got better. And it might be something in the long run makes you feel better about them. Because if the offense does genuinely get to a top 10 plays, and they started here, we're going to be enthused because we saw how far they were able to go and all of this stuff in the ground that they covered. And that's going to probably push hype the other direction. So it's a long season. We got 3 more months? Well, not even 3, 4 more months of football. So
don't you short that on us?
Yeah. Don't crash out yet. You got a long season, Browns fan. You have a lot of ups and downs to go through, because they'll play better, right? I'm pretty confident they'll play better after this. You'll feel better. They'll have a game where you get mad at them again because they lose in a way that you don't like that they lost, whether it be a close game or something like this. And then, they'll play. Remember how up and down we were with the team that went 11-6 last year. They only lost 6 games last year. We were so up and down with the team during the course of the season. Thought the season was over 3 different times. So it's just a long season. You just had to keep that in mind. And it's 1 of 6. It's 1 of 17. I keep getting caught in 16 game land. I'm never going to get my mind out of it. But it's 1 of 17, and it only will matter as much as the Browns make it matter what this game does in the future, right? They play well. They win the next 3. The offense looks much better. If he plays like he did in Tennessee the next 3 games, we won't be sold, but we won't be like, hey, man, it can't happen. It's over with. We got to start gaming, right? We're not going to be at that place. We're going to feel a lot better about it. And I do think, Pete did bring up, the run game did look a lot more encouraging than it looked last year. And if the offense can just get to competent when it comes to the pre-snap stuff, and they're not consistently getting behind the sticks, I think this offense looks completely different, even with how badly individual performance that you got in this game. So I expect them to look much better next week. I expect them to look much better for the rest of the month. This is going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth until the next big game, right? Philly, Baltimore, Cincinnati. You got to win one of those for people to take it different. And you're going to get all the worst national takes about this team. And it's going to be kind of justifiable because when they've seen them, this is what they've seen the last 3 times, right? Texans, I think the Thursday night game kind of counts, but it doesn't. But they put it on Joe Flacco, so it doesn't really feel like it's canon to those people about the Browns. It's kind of a weird way to look at it. But, as far as Deshaun with this team, they've seen like 3 national TV games over the span, and it hasn't looked great. So that's going to be the narrative. They got to dig themselves out of that and, just play better. They play better. They look better. People will feel better. And that's all it needs to be. You're going to hear all kind of stories, right? Oh, somebody's going to be upset they got booed, right? Somebody's going to say something. It's going to become a headline. We're going to hear all the hot takes about it. But, at the end of the day, what matters is what they do week to week from a win-loss total. And they have some wins ahead of them that I think that they can achieve even with the offense not feeling like it's going to be at a great place next week or the week after. I still think they could beat Jacksonville. I still think they could beat the Commanders, right? I still think they can beat a lot of the teams that they're going to be playing in the next few weeks. So, we'll feel a lot differently about this if the Browns are 4-1 going into a big game versus Philly. And now we're like, okay, we get to prove it again, right? And then if you do win that game, it does feel different. So we'll see what they do. It's 1 chapter out of 17. And, it wasn't a great chapter.
I'm not sure any of us could have wrapped things up here on the post-game show better than what Quincy just did. A little bit of hope, but I certainly hope that the people that get the message that you just shared the loudest, Quincy, are the dudes in that locker room, because we can all talk about how they got to be better and how they should feel a little bit stomped down week 1. But they need to come out and prove it from going on forward. That's the message in the locker room, too. That's
straight up. They should be embarrassed by this because they know they're better than this, right? Like, if they're not embarrassed by this and they're just like, oh, man, like, wild game, right? Like, then you got a problem, right? Because that's kind of how the Hugh Jackson Browns were. They knew they weren't better than that, whatever they put out there on Sunday. But this is a team that knows they're better than that. They're more embarrassed about this performance than we are as fans watching it, right? Myles Garrett looked furious on that sideline with what he was watching because he knows he's better than that. He could have played better. Everybody could have played better. That result is not something that should have happened, right? Like, even given the circumstances, no offensive line play, you shouldn't have been that bad. Everybody, that's below the standard. That's below what Kevin Stefanski wants for this team. Everybody involved with that should be embarrassed, and I think they are, and they should be fairly aware of the fact that they are much better than this. And again, how they respond against Jacksonville will mean everything, right? They come out like a team that was embarrassed. They put that out on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. All right. I'm not worried about the locker room. I'm not worried. We'll feel much better about the leadership of this team at the very least. So, I trust them to correct course and be the veteran team that they are, because these are guys who've been in the league a long time.
Man, let's hope you're right. Guys, man, been at it for about an hour here now on the post-game show. We're going to let everybody run. Really tough loss for the Cleveland Browns, 33-17 against the Dallas Cowboys. People getting some of their frustrations out, but also room for hope. And as we talked about here, 1 chapter in a 17-chapter story. And so plenty of room to go up from here. That's the good news. I think it can only go up from here. At least that's what we're all hoping as Browns fans. So listen, for Brad, for Casey, for Pete, for Quincy, thanks for jumping on with us on the OBR postgame show. Browns fall to 0-1 on the season, but we're doing this every week. Make sure you tune in. Everybody on the screen here is going to have shows coming up this week. So make sure you tune in to the OBR streaming network all week long, as we're going to take you all the way with our Browns reactions, looking ahead to next week, and so much more. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. We have got things going every day just about this week. So make sure you are locked in and tuned in to the OBR streaming network. Until next week, we'll see you then. And as always, go Browns.